I thought that the leaders from Europe, when they went around the table, played Trump really well.
Well, Donald Trump has spent today, in fact, the last few days, in the place he's very much happy to be, on show, on stage, and as the master of ceremonies, with every world leader from Keir Starmer to Vladimir Putin making a way to his door. As we know, he craves a Nobel Peace Prize, but deep down, what will he likely make of what he's achieved or struggling to achieve? The fact that this peace deal with Ukraine that he promised to get done on one day has not materialised. Let's get inside the president's mind, if that's possible, with David Cay Johnston, journalist, long-time Trump observer and author of The Making of Donald Trump. Evening to you, David.
Good evening.
How will Donald Trump be feeling about how this meeting is going so far with the European leaders? I assume he'll be, in the first instance, just very pleased that they all turned up.
Well, the meeting's now over. Zelensky's going to stay on. The other world leaders are expected to depart tonight or in the morning. Donald is absolutely thrilled about this. He makes these fantastical statements regarding his tariffs, about claiming that world leaders all over have called him up and going, "Oh, Mr. President, thank you for telling us what we didn't understand, and we're so grateful to you," and similar nonsense that he just makes up, as he's done his whole life, because Donald creates his own reality. I thought that the leaders from Europe, when they went around the table, played Trump really well. They flattered him, and Donald is always desperate for flattery. They seem to have somehow minimally coordinated, and they pressed very hard the up to or estimated 20,000 kidnapped children, though it wasn't clear if that really had any effect on Donald. And of course, Donald being Donald, he diverted to things like future elections and trade, rather than sticking to the core issue that the meeting was supposed to be about, at least the public portion of the meeting.
Security and having effective security relies really on being able to trust that security will come to play if called upon. And is there not the difficulty with Donald Trump, even if he may say that the US will play a part, that in reality Europe can't be certain that position might not change overnight, as he threatened and in fact did withdraw temporarily, admittedly, but for a short time withdrew that intelligence sharing with Ukraine, and it can cause real difficulties on the ground instantly. So how certain and reassured can Europe be, even when Donald Trump says the US will be there in some form?
Yeah, I don't see any reason anyone should trust any promise ever made by Vladimir Putin.
So how can you get a deal with this guy? It's not possible to have a security deal if the main security presence of that can't be relied upon.
Well, I agree with you about that. I think there are issues that will prevent us from even getting to that point, however, the children being one of them. I mean, today, while these talks are going on, Russia launched, according to the Ukrainian military, strategic bombers to attack Ukraine. And so Putin is in a position where, he's lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers. He has gained almost no territory since a year and a half ago, at 0.5% of Ukraine. And even though he's a dictator, popular support actually matters to your stability and ability to maintain your position as dictator. Donald, on the other hand, is famous for, and I know this from my many meetings with him and discussions over the last 37 years, listening to the last person he spoke to. So Trump may have left the meeting with the European leaders saying one thing, but he also called Putin today, and it'll be interesting to see what he starts saying tomorrow. But security guarantees don't exist with Putin and with his ambitions to reestablish some modern equivalent of the old USSR satellite system of countries under the Kremlin's boot. So this is going to require creation of things like a DMZ, as we have in Korea, the stationing of troops at the border, which of course is a very risky thing to do, and steps like Finland, which has been doing a great deal to increase the security of its 800-mile border with Russia.
David, I'm fascinated by, let's turn it back to the domestic setting for Donald Trump. He, of course, has a very solid base of MAGA supporters who we know are instinctively sceptical of Europe and America's role in supporting Europe. What is the populist right's view of these meetings today, do you imagine? And do they exert any influence still over Donald Trump, or are they ultimately loyal to whichever way he chooses to take them?
Well, the very hardcore MAGA people, who by and large are, as Donald refers to them, the poorly educated, they want nothing to do with this, but they are only between 20 and 25% of the adult voting population. They're a minority. Unfortunately, the Democrats have not been very effective in figuring out messaging about where they stand. I mean, they very clearly stand with Ukraine, but they haven't been very effective at messaging this. But polling in the United States is showing that Trump's support is dwindling. There are more people who disapprove of his actions, driven more by these Gestapo-like arrests of people off the street. You know, a boy walking his dog, the DoorDash delivery guy who was beaten, and the masked agents with no badges on, shouting at the gathering crowd, complaining, you know, that we can do anything. We can do anything we want. So that's probably hurting Trump more than matters involving Ukraine. On the other hand, you know, think about this. All those European leaders came with Zelensky because they understand how much of a threat Putin is to the rest of Europe and to the people who stand in line right behind him, some of whom have been described by very close watchers of Moscow as worse than Putin in terms of security.
Trump talks, it seems genuinely, about how much he hates the killing, hates the sight of soldiers dying on both sides, Russian soldiers and Ukrainian soldiers. You study him very closely, you understand better than most his mindset. Is it true that this is a very personal driving force behind Trump wanting to see peace, regardless of the risk that it rewards the aggressor? Does he just have a visceral dislike of violence on the battlefield?
Not in the least.
Right, that's emphatic.
Right. When Donald's top three casino executives died in a helicopter crash in 1989 under very, very unusual circumstances. There's never been a similar crash in the history of helicopters, and especially not the Augusta brand that was involved. Donald immediately started talking about the $35 million of key man insurance he was about to collect, and made up contradictory stories about whether he was going to be on that helicopter or not that became a totally tangled web. What Donald wants is a Nobel Peace Prize. His press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, claimed the other day that in just 6 months, Trump has settled 6 wars around the world. A fantastical claim. But Donald complains all the time, they're rigged against me. I should get the Nobel Peace Prize. Obama didn't deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, and the Norwegian officials who deal with that prize have apparently removed Trump from the list of people who are nominated currently.
Oh, he's going to be really annoyed to hear that, David. Thanks very much for the insight and thoughts on Donald Trump as he continues to host at the White House those European leaders. That's David Cay Johnston, Trump biographer.